Welcome to the Disney Wedding Podcast. This show is brought to you by Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, the only guidebook and bridal organizer tailored exclusively to Disney's fairy tale weddings at Walt Disney World. I'm Carrie Hayward, and each week I feature Disney wedding updates, money-saving tips, and interviews with wedding vendors and real Disney couples. I also cover honeymoons, anniversaries, and engagements at the Disney parks and resorts. Join me now as the Disney Wedding Podcast celebrates romance at Disney destinations. Today on the Disney Wedding Podcast, I am speaking with Disney bride Alley Moore and her mom, Missy Smith, about her wedding at the Tree of Life in Animal Kingdom with a reception at the Festival of the Lion King. I thought you guys would be interested to hear about how she chose these locations and how she planned everything and how it all turned out. So welcome, Alley and Missy.
Hello!
Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Super excited.
Well, I would love to start at the very beginning and find out, Alley, how did you decide you wanted to have your wedding at Disney?
So ever since I basically came straight out of the womb, it feels like I have always went to Disney, if not once or twice a year. So I kind of related Disney to a more like nostalgic feel, and it kind of became literally the most magical place in my heart. Every time that I went, I always loved the smells and the sounds. And I guess everybody else knew, I didn't, until I was about to get married, that you could actually get married at Disney. And like I said, I'm sure everybody else knew, but I did not. And once I found out, it was basically, yes, I have to go there. There's no other place for me. It fits me perfectly. So I had to pick that.
How did you find out that you could have a wedding at Walt Disney World?
Well, Mom basically told me, but I guess the realization didn't hit until I seen the show Disney Weddings on Disney Plus, and I got to see a few little sneak peeks of how it went, what it looked like. And of course I was like, I have to do that. It's in my blood. I have to do that.
That's awesome. Now, how did your friends and family react when they found out the wedding was going to be at Disney?
It was mixed reactions, to say the least. Mostly positive. A lot of people, you can ask any family member if they would have been given the question, hey, where do you think Allie would get married in the future? They would probably say Disney no matter what, just because they know how I am. But there was also some negative parts where people were a bit disappointed that it was so far away from where we live and that they probably wouldn't be able to come because of budget or travel or anything like that. So it was 50-50, but mostly everybody was happy and positive about it and excited.
That's wonderful. Now, how many guests did you invite and how many were able to make the trip?
We invited around probably 70 to 80 people, and we basically invited anybody that we were they would appreciate an invitation even if they don't come. But so around 70 to 80 of that, but we ended up having 60 show up, and it was way more than I thought would actually show up. So that was a very big surprise, and I was excited about it.
That's great to hear. Did you guys set up a room block for your guests?
Yes, we did, and this is where I'm going to hand the mic over to my mother dearest, because I have no idea what's going on with that. So I'm going to let her describe that.
The room block it ended up being worth it in the end. It was super stressful to try to get that many people to see kind of what we texted everybody first and asked what kind of vibe they wanted, how they wanted to be cheap or more stay a little bit more or less. Allie wanted to stay in the Animal Kingdom Lodge to kind of stay in the same vibe. And that's where most of her wedding party ended up staying. And then we picked All-Star Music because it's basically the cheapest, but also has the options for the family suites, which was nice for a couple of our guests ended up getting those. And then we picked a slow pace for people who really wasn't super Disney fans but just wanted to relax, so we picked Port Orleans French Quarter, and it worked out good.
Oh, that's great. Now, how did you choose the day of the week and time of day for the wedding?
So we ended up picking Friday because we figured that a lot of people would end up turning my wedding into a sort of extended vacation. So we decided that the best day would be Friday so that people could either fly down early on the day of Friday, or they could end up coming down Thursday and then stay until Sunday without having to worry about going to work or school or anything like that. Time-wise, we really didn't get a load of options. They kind of gave us, you want this or nothing at all. So the first option was before the park opened, and if you know me, I do not do mornings. So that was an automatic no. So the final option was after the park closed at 11 to start it up.
I see. Okay, got it. Now, how did you choose those venues for your ceremony and your reception?
The ceremony, I just loved the colors that the tree would show at night. The light package that came with it was literally exactly what I wanted. And I even told him, I was like, I want like cocoa colors from the movie Coco, the sunset colors, the tangled, the scene wherever she picks up the lanterns and throws them out and does all the things. And the tree really just popped at night, and it was so beautiful. It really was. It was just beautiful. It was like no other ceremony that could ever happen. I mean, not many people get married in front of a super big tree. So it was perfect. And it kind of made me feel almost like the Enchanted Garden vibe that I wanted.
The reception space initially she wanted Harambe's Village because going with the lighting, she always loved like when it would turn dark at night when we were at Disney, just the lights kicking on and just that whole vibe. And we found out that you couldn't have music after midnight and being 11 p.m. ceremony, and she wanted a super traditional reception with all the bells and whistles. That wasn't going to work out. So Joe, who we was communicating with, had sent us a couple different options, and he suggested Festival of the Lion King. Didn't have many pictures because we had yet to see any pictures actually of anybody setting it up like a normal reception, but he kind of sold it on us with the air condition. So we were like, oh, well, let's give it a chance. So that's kind of how we ended up with the Festival of the Lion King.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And so did you feel like you had to do a lot to that space to make it feel like a wedding reception?
The bleachers was really kind of what stumped us the most out of that reception, just because it was basically bleachers and then a big open space. So it felt like we did have to kind of tweak a lot of things or like add a lot of things to almost make it feel like a reception space. But it ended up not being too bad. The lighting package that it came with was wonderful, way better than expected, because it was kind of a surprise where there were no pictures.
Interesting. So what kinds of stuff did you do to make it feel more wedding-y?
Well, first thing we did was we went to one of the shows and watched, because it was kind of like, let's go and see for ourselves and kind of do like just kind of go and check it out beforehand. And while we were watching the show, we were like, maybe we could do this or this or this. And there's a part in the show where they key up the Be Prepared song and the lights kind of dimmed and everything turned purple and pink and orange. And we were like, oh, that's it. That's how we're going to do it. And it kind of blocked out. They kind of had no lighting on the bleachers. So we just specified that if they could get that lighting to where that queue was, and then keeping their sweetheart table right in front of the curtains where the animals come out, and kind of for framing of the pictures and do a gobo behind that, kind of kept the eye in that direction. And then setting up things not super close to the bleachers to where mostly just in the center of the room. And it really, really worked out with pictures. And actually there are several pictures that people took where you can see the ceiling and stuff, and it kind of looks like a firework had went off. And so I really, really, really liked how it turned out, and would in the end recommend it for a really nice reception space.
Oh, that's so great to hear. Another thing I've heard people wondering about is the dance floor. Did you guys decide to bring in a dance floor or just use the existing floor?
We just used the existing floor, and it was actually surprisingly really good. I mean, we had a large amount of people there. I mean, more than expected. And we had gobos that were shining on the dance floor that had both mine and Isaac's name. And it was super cute and super pretty. And we got some really good pictures with the gobo on the floor while everybody's dancing around.
Mm-hmm.
It was not crowded at all, like you may expect. But it was, honestly, it was really, really fantastic.
That's great to hear. And then finally, a lot of people are concerned about if I have a late wedding after the park closes and then my reception is directly after it, my guests will be too tired or they'll leave early. How did that work out for you guys?
I cannot stress this enough. I was so nervous about that, and I thought it so many times that I ended up posting on our Facebook group. My mom, whenever we found out exactly who was coming or who said they were coming, she put them into a Facebook group for my wedding, and we posted announcements in there. I posted several times about I wanted my guests to take an evening nap and make sure that they were not tired. I told them to, if they have kids, take them swimming, tire them out, and then let them take a nap. And if they're adults, then they should not go to a park before the wedding because, one, your feet is going to hurt. And, you know, people get up super early for the wedding, so I knew that they would be tired. So I tried my best. I couldn't guarantee that my guests wouldn't be tired, but with our timeline and how fast it felt like everything went, it was actually, everybody had a really good time and everybody was super energetic still.
Yeah, there were actually no real downtimes where you were, because we were really worried they gave us 11 p.m. ceremony time, but we had to wrap up the reception by 2:30. So that was wedding, pictures, cocktail hour, and trying to do a full reception with the daddy-daughter dance, the bouquet, the garter toss, all the traditional things. And so we were super stressed about that timeline, but it ended up making everything go like where there was no downtime for people to get tired. Even our older people that go to bed early, really, they said they had no issues and was really surprised when it said time for last call. They were shocked and felt really good. So it worked out fantastic.
That's awesome. Now, I know you can't use outside vendors for most things at an in-park event, but were there any aspects of the wedding that you used outside vendors for?
There were 2 outside vendors. One was Michelle, and she was just another day of wedding coordinator. So she was just another helping hand that we found. She was recommended on a lot of the Disney wedding groups that we're on. We're on multiple, and she was recommended on several of them. So we messaged her, and she was a good helping hand throughout the day and throughout the ceremony and the reception. And we actually sneaked in our other vendor because they were like, no, you can't do this. But
well, they didn't really say they didn't say no. They just wanted a letter of explanation on what a wedding content creator is, since it's such a new thing, which is basically just someone with their cell phone capturing moments of you getting ready and things that photographers and videographers aren't going to get. And she just kind of follows you around and she'll put together TikToks and do all those things. So we ended up getting her and putting her down as just a wedding guest because our wedding planner just couldn't grasp the concept of what it was. And her name was Rebecca Swanson, and we found her on TikTok.
That's very cool. I think that's a great idea because that's one less thing for you to worry about.
Yeah. Oh, yes. It was fantastic, especially for the mother of the bride. I didn't feel like I had to have my phone out. I knew that she was getting special hugs and just people, like just behind the scenes stuff. And that word behind the scenes kind of triggered the Disney people because, you know, they're like, behind the scenes, that's no, we don't get behind the scenes. But it's just behind our scenes, not their scenes. So.
Now, how did you choose the officiant for the ceremony?
We heard Kevin Knox through several, once again, Facebook Disney wedding groups. He was just, if anybody asked, hey, do you have any officiant recommendations, his name just flooded the comments. And they talked about how professional he was, but also how he kind of had like a fun bone in his body. He wasn't like too serious to where he was scary. He just really lit up the ceremony a lot. He made sure that it was lighthearted, but also not too goofy to where it felt unprofessional. But he did really, really good, and we found him just throughout the wedding Facebook groups.
That's great. Did you add any kind of entertainment to the ceremony or the reception?
Yeah, we had the DJ, Chuck Johnson. Once again, fantastic. He was just like Kevin Knox. He was recommended. And he did really, really good. His playlists and his club mixes or whatever he had was absolutely fantastic. We danced the entire time. I felt like I was going to throw up at the end because I did not stop. It was super fun. And where we're from, West Virginia, he kind of got personal and played Almost Heaven. Yeah, Country Roads. So, and everybody loved that. But he was fantastic. And then we had the characters come out, Mickey and Minnie in their little safari outfits. And that was really cute. They were only out for a short time, and people got to snag some pictures, and we got to cut the cake with them. But they really added a little bit of a flair to the entertainment. And everybody was really surprised because we kept it a secret.
That's awesome. Do you have any cake flavors or menu items from the reception that you would recommend?
Oh my gosh. My cake was to die for. We had a 3-tier. We had a top tier that was funfetti with cookies and cream filling, and all of them had default buttercream icing, so I won't mention that. But the top tier we kind of made as a everybody layer, so everybody would eat it. Everybody likes funfetti. The second one was the groom's choice. So we did peanut butter cake and caramel filling. And then mine was the bottom tier, and it was almond cake with white chocolate maple filling. And it was so good. The cake was fantastic. Not dry at all. Would eat again.
And the tomato soup and grilled cheese, inspired by Woody's Lunchbox tomato soup and grilled cheese that we had at the dessert party. Everybody was the hit. Everybody loved that soup. They said they could bath in the soup. It was so good. And the whoopie pies, of course, was amazing. And then at the wedding, the petite fillets were so tender. I don't even know if you needed a knife. They were so tender, and there was no complaints about that. And the mac and cheese action bar, people were really, really, really still talking about how much they loved that mac and cheese.
That's awesome. So talking about your dessert party that you had as a welcome party, how did you choose the upper terrace at France for the location?
Once again, my lighting. Lighting really draws me in, and it had that very dark, because where we had it in the evening and we got to watch the fireworks show, we knew that it would get darker, so we wanted to have a well-lit area. And that spot was perfect beside the water, and it had that very Italian French kind of feel, and the lighting was just so dim and romantic feeling, not to where people couldn't see what they were doing, but it was definitely to where it was oh, this is so cozy and lovely. And it was close to the ride that we were going to add on, which was the Remy's Ratatouille ride. So people that we had that were in wheelchairs, people didn't have to push them very far, and people didn't have to walk super far because it was just really close and convenient.
That's great. Did you decide to add a bar to your dessert party?
No. We ended up just we had country sweet tea, lemonade, and water.
That was one of our things that, because it is just an hour and a half, it was it's not that super big of a deal, so let's try to cut that to save some money.
Got it. Okay. Now, can you give my listeners a timeline of how the day ran?
I'm going to let my mom do this because I just feel like I blacked out. I was bombarded by photographers and videographers, hairstylists, makeup artists, my bridesmaids, my guests, messaging, all of the things. So I'm going to let her describe how her day timeline went for that.
She lived in pure bliss that day. She had no worries. So the hair and makeup was scheduled for 1:30, and Michelle, the extra day of coordinator that we had hired, she came at around 1. And the videographers, photographers, and wedding content creators showed up at around 7. The hair and makeup, they closed everything out at around 8. The boys left by limo at 9. The vendors left at 9:15. That's photographer, videographers. And then the girls left at 9:30 and then our guests were picked up at 10:10 p.m. via bus from mostly All-Star Music, really, was a majority of the rest of the people. And ceremony started at 11. So in between us going there from 9:30 to when the guests got there, she did do a first look with her daddy and her papa. And so that worked out really good. And then we tried to get as many photos as possible before, because her and Isaac didn't see each other before the wedding, which is, I know, not very common nowadays. People want to get it over, which you do end up with beautiful pictures and stuff, but they did want to stick with the traditional. So it did put a little bit of a time constraint on afterwards since we had such a short time. But the ceremony was at 11. Then quickly they did their pictures, went straight into cocktail hour. And the timeline there at the reception they did so good about starting up the food. And Mickey and Minnie come out at 1:30 and they danced till about 2. And so they did the cake cutting and all that in between that. And from 2 to 2:30, she had nothing but dance floor time, and it was perfect.
That's awesome. So when the two of you were planning, what were some of the most important aspects where you focused your attention and your budget, and did you each have different priorities?
I feel like we were on the same level, because her priority was what my priority was, and she wanted to make sure that I had the best day. So we were on the same level, but I think that my priority was literally the colors. I wanted the perfect lighting. I wanted the perfect rose petals. I wanted everything just to match my vibe and the feeling of how I wanted the wedding to feel. So we really focused a lot on decorations. And then another thing I feel like we focused on a lot was food. Mm-hmm. We really we're Southern, so we really didn't want to go too fancy. So we decided to just really make sure that everybody would enjoy the food, and made sure that it was nice and comfort foody, and it was fantastic.
Yeah. At first we thought, we won't put too much into the ceremony because the tree and everything looks so beautiful, but she was fixated on the bridge from Coco, all those oranges and the beautiful lighting from the tangled lantern scene. So, but she didn't want it to look like too themed to where it felt like a birthday party almost. So we incorporated the bridge scene with the super bright orange heavy petal swirl coverage down the aisle, which was an expense, but we knew that it was super important to her. And the candles down the aisle, just like lots and lots of candles down the aisle, kind of brought that tangled lantern scene kind of to life when she turned the corner, and it was perfect. Really, it was. We focused a lot of the budget towards just that feeling that she got.
That's awesome. Did you add the Awakenings light show?
We didn't, actually. That may have been one that I wasn't sure if was worth it for me. Just budget-wise, I felt like it was kind of an add-on that would once again kind of take up. I was so worried about time that I couldn't even focus on adding any more things than I had to. And the lighting package was honestly just enough for me. So it worked out really, really well, but we ended up not going with the show afterwards.
That's a good point. Now that I think about it, most of the Tree of Life weddings I've seen where they add the show, they have the reception on a different day. And so they're not rushing to make the reception.
Yeah.
And so then, were there any aspects that were less important to either of you where you saved your money or your effort?
A big one that was for me was my floral, specifically like my bouquet.
Personal floral.
Yeah, my personal floral. My ceremony floral and everything was very important to me. But what I walked down with and had for just really pictures and for like 30 minutes was not worth spending an arm and a leg over. So I kind of I didn't get too specific, and I didn't want to add too much stuff into my bouquet. So I kind of just told them, these are my colors, do what you want with it. I'm not too specific, and it worked out really well.
We also gave them a budget with the bouquets, and I think that helped a whole lot since it wasn't super important to her. The color was more important than the flower choice. And I had seen some really beautiful bouquets but they were some super big price tags. And since it wasn't worth it to her, we stuck with, hey, what can we get for $200 for her? And then with the bridesmaids, we kept them at around $75, $85. And then we got to use them again. We actually decorated her head table with the bouquets and put them in like little vases and stuff. And it worked out really well.
That's a great idea. So what ended up being each of your favorite memory of the wedding day?
My favorite memory as the bride, I had two. The first one was before the ceremony even began. It was whenever I was getting ready with hair and makeup, and it actually rained 2 times before my wedding, 2 separate times. And throughout the entire day, it had rain forecast for days beforehand too. And what they tell you is do not look at the weather forecast because Florida weather is so sketchy. So even after seeing like, oh, it's going to rain, we still checked every single day. And the day of, I tried to be like, oh, it'll change. But then as we were all getting ready, hours and hours beforehand, it rains 2 separate times. And at this point, I'm so disappointed because the backup option that they gave us was
Harambe's Village.
And the reception space. But it was just, I didn't want to do it at the reception space. And the Harambe would have been fine with our decorations, but I just had this image of the tree. And I knew that in my heart, I would have still longed for the tree of life. And my husband now, he had a tattoo that he got that because we were so confident that we're going to get married in front of the tree of life. He got a tattoo of the tree of life on his chest to symbolize our wedding day. And so we were like, oh my gosh, he's going to have a tattoo and everything, and it's going to rain us out. So it came to the cutoff time where they were waiting as long as they could. They even gave us an extra hour to look at the radar because they were hopeful. And then
7 p.m.
It was 7 p.m. whenever they came to call it. And they came in while I was getting my hair done and was like, guess who's getting married in front of the tree of life? And we all lost it. And that was a really good memory because I was just so excited and relieved. But I think my second favorite memory wedding-wise was right after the ceremony, right after we had our little exit and we got a little moment to ourselves, just like 3 minutes or something like that. We were so excited and we were like, oh my gosh, we're married. We were both had tears in our eyes and we were like, that was crazy.
My favorite was I really had a full-blown, like a really good day, just spending the day with Allie. She's our only child, and just since we did hire so many extra people, it really did allow for me just to be able to soak it in and enjoy that time with her. But when she started coming down the aisle and he looked at her, he lost it. He just booger balled as she went down the aisle. And that was probably one of my favorite moments because I knew he was just so happy and so tickled to have her. And it makes a mommy happy.
That's wonderful. Okay, so you talked about the rain and that actually turned out to be okay. Was there anything that went wrong or just didn't turn out like you expected?
I'm going to once again pass the mic over to my mom because, as we stated before, I was in pure bliss the entire wedding, so I really didn't even notice anything because it was either a small issue that was fixed before I could even notice, or it was just a detail that I just forgot about and did not even notice again. So I'm going to let her explain what actually went wrong.
We had a couple things, not like just little things. The welcome party, when we went to sit down at the tables, I noticed that we just had the plain just one little candle votive, and we were supposed to have those 3 roses Mickey centerpieces that are like kind of buried in the stones with lights in them. And so I was like, oh, wait a second. And I kind of ran over to Michelle and was like, our centerpieces aren't here. And she was like, oh, they're not. Let me check on that. And it was about 15, 20 minutes later. I started seeing them come out. And so people had to kind of move their plates and just kind of move and shuffle stuff around for these centerpieces that they didn't even know was supposed to be there. And they come over. I met Ariel from the Day Of team, and she come over and explained that they were sorry and that they had spoke to our wedding planner and that they would give us half off, which was good because I wasn't even fussing or anything. I was just kind of just sitting in a corner, just kind of like, oh my gosh, all this work, and then we just blew it from the way it felt. It was a tiny little thing, but it was just like, dang, you kind of lost the just the reveal of everything, and so that was kind of a bummer. But it was fine. It was resolved. It was not a big deal. And then the day of the wedding, they made not a big deal, but they kind of said, when we were like, well, where are we going to have our cocktail hour? And they said, well, it's going to be in the same place, Festival of the Lion King, but we'll put up these cocktail tables and we'll do this and we'll put them over here, and made a big deal about people standing at the cocktail tables. And then I walked in and nobody was at the cocktail tables. Everybody was already at their assigned seating. So I'm like, what the heck? Why did we even get these cocktail tables? And then I sat down and we had the wrong chargers, which again wasn't the big, huge deal. They were clear sea glass chargers, but they were supposed to be the gold sea glass chargers. So once again, not a big, huge thing, but I noticed because it's just not what we had in our BO. And then we had in our BO no bottles or cans, everything to be poured into glasses. And I noticed there was a can on the table. And so I just kind of went over to the bartender and told him that we had specified in our BO that we just needed all stuff to be poured in a glass. I just didn't like the way it looked in pictures. It just looks cleaner with just glasses. So he was like, no problem. And he took, I'd never seen another can the rest of the night. So it wasn't a big deal.
That's great to know. Now, I know the weather was something you guys were stressed out about. Was there anything else that seemed like a big deal beforehand or you were stressed out about, and then it turned out not to be a big deal?
It was definitely, for me, it was the timing of everything. 3.5 hours did not seem like a lot of time to do everything that we were paying for. And I was worried that we wouldn't get our money's worth and that everything would feel super rushed and nobody would be able to actually breathe and enjoy the wedding. But as it went on, it went by fast, but it wasn't rushed in a sense. Everybody still had a really good time. Everything went how it was supposed to. There was no issue with timing. We actually ended up just throwing out the garter. We still did the toss and the garter toss and the bouquet toss, but we skipped the whole thing with him getting it from under my dress because we were like, it's not super priority for me. And we also, they wanted to spend, 45 minutes to eat on the schedule. And I was like, that's a lot of time to eat. So after, me and Isaac were done, we started doing our rounds with everybody, and everybody was basically already finishing up. So I guess they caught on to that, and we went ahead and started doing some other things. And instead of 45 minutes, we may have spent 25 minutes eating. So that gave us a little bit of extra time, but it ended up not being as important as I thought it would be.
Interesting. Okay. But that's a great tip about when you're finished to start going around to the tables, because then you're not cutting into dancing time.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything that either of you would have done differently knowing what you know now?
I'll tell you what I would have done. At the welcome party, that's a long walk, and we knew it was going to be a long walk, but when we had our meeting with the welcome party, it was kind of just brushed over that, okay, we're going to do this many tables and this many cocktail tables. And it's okay, great. And she was just like, well, with the cocktail tables, most people like to walk and talk around. Nobody really sits down anyway. I'm like, yeah, it's a good idea. That's great. Mix it up. It'll look good, tall, short, and all the different tables. But time we had walked back there, I thought the younger people would get to the cocktail tables, but those little devils ended up sitting down. And then my hind end ended up at the cocktail table. Which was fine. I mean, I drug my little table over to the little edge of in Terrace, Fleurs, they have these, places where the flowers are, and there's like a little ledge. So I just sat there on the ledge with my little table, and I was happy as a little lamb. But I wish that I would have allowed everybody to have seating rather than the standing up.
Interesting. Anything for you, Allie?
No. I feel like I really did just have a good time. I got to be the princess. I didn't have any like, oh man, I wish I could have done that, because it was all about me. I didn't have any issues. I didn't have any complaints, and I got to sit where I wanted to, dance where I wanted to, where I wanted to. So really, no.
That's awesome. That's just how it should be. So do either of you have any other tips or advice for future Disney couples?
Yes, I do. I'm in nursing school, and if I would have been planning this wedding by myself, and for everybody who doesn't know and is listening to the podcast, my mom did probably 98% of my planning and just ran it across me and was like, do you like this? And I'd say, yep. And she'd say, okay. So my tip is, if you are super busy or you don't have somebody that could help you out or have a helping hand, or just one of you in the relationship is not as available as one may hope, then either wait a little bit longer for maybe break time, like a summer break if you're in school, or just a job that's flexible, that you can do your wedding. But if you're super busy, then I would try to find somebody to either help you or look into a different wedding, because it was so stressful for Mom. And I literally, her being stressed made me stressed. And that is the worst kind of stress. It was like, why are you crying right now? And she would just be like, the flowers, I can't get a hold of all of these emails. And I would just be like, okay, I don't know what's happening.
Okay, so in saying that, the tip is just, it is so stressful. It is so stressful. And bless her heart, she really is. If you've been in nursing school or any kind of like program like that, it's so competitive, and she was so busy, and she externs at the hospital too. So she is busy. Her husband is busy. And my sole job is, her. And so I just kind of took it on to do everything. And I'm glad that I was able to do it. But for anybody that doesn't have the extra person, Lord have mercy, get you some people, because it is intense, and it really cranks up at about the 90-day mark. I was so shocked they just bombarded. It's just like, we've not spoken a year, and then you're just going to bombard me at 90 days with like, hello, I need you, I need you, I need you. So it was rough. And the 60-person guest count, trying to keep up with them, and it was a lot. It was super stressful. So I would just have a village for sure.
That's great advice. Well, Allie and Missy, I think you've both offered tons of great tips and advice for anyone who's interested in getting married at Walt Disney World, and I appreciate your taking the time.
Yay! Woo!
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Carrie Hayward, inviting you to join me again next week for another episode of the Disney Wedding Podcast. Past shows and tons of photos for each episode are available on my website, DisneyWeddingPodcast.com, or listen in your favorite podcast app. And for instant answers to all your Walt Disney World wedding questions, check out Carrie Hayward's Fairy Tale Weddings Guide, available as an interactive ebook with continual free updates at fairytaleweddingsguide.com.